chair for the first bit. We're going to do roll call, after which we'll do nominations for the chair. So let's begin. I'm here, so I can. Jacqueline Skiptunis, VPA is here. Mehbooba Rahman, GPFO is here. Danny Shanahan, is here. Jessica Rosas is here. Yazan, okay, he's here. Aaron Beal is here. Sam Dixon?
I'm the proxy, Jay Cover.
Cool, and you submitted the form and everything?
Yes.
Perfect.
So Uber has it.
Okay, perfect. You did it yesterday at 5 or something, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a rule. You can't submit proxy forms right now. This was submitted yesterday, right?
You can submit proxy forms. You just have to have had emailed the chair.
Oh, okay. Perfect. Okay, that's it. Perfect. Dylan McConnell.
Yeah.
Andrew Bucci.
Yeah.
Nice. John Hutton.
Present.
Yes. Rebecca Howard. Okay. Alexander Killam. Yes, indeed. Michael Davies Cole.
Yeah.
Ben Hammer.
Yeah.
Sarah Swasson. Sarah Swasson. Amir Al-Fashab. Okay. Fawaz, yeah. Scott Verdon. Tiana. Jomel. Yes, yes. Caitlin Lois sent her regrets. Christine Rankin sent regrets. Amelia sent a proxy.
Not here yet.
Okay.
It's forward.
Brogan characters. No.
I think she's at the agricultural campus.
Oh. Sydney Miller. Brandon Price has sent.
I'm here.
Oh, you managed to make it. Good. That's what you said.
Step pregnant.
Perfect. Daniel Smith.
Yep.
Yes. Chris Berman. Chris Berman? Okay. Mackenzie Arnold?
Here.
Perfect. Ian Burton. Jasmine. Roxy? Perfect. And Lee. Here, perfect. We have Tom Steve.
Here.
Yes. Hey, Charlie. All right. Emily. Emily Griffin. Emily on this one. Jasmine Sultan, yes. Vishwa Patel. Chloe Edwards here. All right, so we easily have quorum and it has been recorded. Great. Now I will take nominations for chair. The floor is open. Any nominations for chair?
I'd like to nominate Greg.
Yes, there's a nomination for Greg. Greg, do you accept the nomination? Perfect. Any other nominations? Any other nominations for chair? Any other nominations for chair? All right, great. So, Greg, you are appointed by acclamation.
Yes. Yeah, sure. I was here. I'll just introduce myself. My name is Greg. I'm a law student here. I know Andrew from the school. He asked me to confirm. I filled in here a few weeks ago. I guess just on a motion, and so I'm kind of here to do that again. And yeah, I guess it's a good meeting. Okay.
Just a FYI.
Yeah.
This person's here as a proxy for Christine.
For
So, for arts and social studies.
Okay. So, we're done from the chair meeting. Adoption of the agenda. Are there any amendments to the agenda?
Can we put it up on the board?
Yeah.
Oh.
As we get that up, is there anyone that wants to add anything on the agenda tonight? Sure.
Yes, I'd like to add a presentation. I believe the documents were mailed to you.
Okay. Do I have a seconder for, or do you want to, we'll seconder for it first? VP Academic, thanks, Ron. Jackie. Okay, sorry, and I don't know your name, so I'll just, for speakers list, hold your plaque up high and I'll just call you by here. Rams, you want to motivate on it?
Yeah, so I mean, I'd just like to do a presentation on students of Scotia. It's just a summary of my experiences, especially as VP Administration of the organization. And I think it'd be important for me to share these thoughts before we make a decision today. And also have supporting documentation to find out.
Sure. Okay, was there a very brief discussion on that? Okay, we'll just go straight to the vote. All those in favor, and sorry, just first of all, where on the agenda can we put that?
Presentation.
Presentations, sure, so that's gonna be point 7, sorry guys, I guess we're having technical difficulties. So point 7 on the agenda, if you have that in front of you. And that's gonna be Ram's presentation on students of Nova Scotia. All those in favor of adding that to the agenda? Okay, passes. Does everyone want their abstentions noted? Is that something you guys note abstentions?
Yes.
No? Okay. Okay, any other amendments to the agenda? Yeah, architecture planning?
I believe that Students of Nova Scotia's president would like to also make a presentation as well.
Okay,
I thought that was what you were originally putting through, but maybe you could present together because you're both on the board.
I think there's separate presentations.
Let's have a presentation. Okay.
I don't know if the president is here today.
Sorry.
okay, do I have a seconder for that one? Sure, and sorry,
Engineering.
engineering, sure, second engineering, do you want to motivate for that? Architecture?
I just think that it's good to hear from both sides, and I believe that Rams will have a good view of the DSU's participation in that, and I think it would be very beneficial to see both sides of that, and then maybe have both presentations and question and answer after that. I don't know if that's something we can add in. Just to foster a good debate between both sides, because this is an important decision.
Sure, and I think the question is, we're just gonna go with presentations.
Yeah.
So. Any brief discussion on that? Sure.
I'm
Was that
really
women's community? Thank you.
I'm really concerned, as SNS has proven in the past, to make irrelevant personal attacks at different members of the DSU, that it's not actually a safe idea to have them present. I'd be concerned about the environment that would create.
Sure. Next up, member at large.
Likewise, I'd like to speak against adding them to the agenda as much as I'd like to have more information for this conversation. Students of Nova Scotia does have a history of both telling lies at council meetings and also using true information in a manipulative way.
Point of order.
Wait, where?
I think that point just convinces councillors of voting against by saying students Nova Scotia is
I think that's a point more than
lies, is lying
Yeah.
to councillors or things like that.
Okay, so
that's my personal thing.
I'll put you on the speakers list, you'll be next up, okay?
No, that was a point of order I raised.
Okay, what's the actual procedural issue?
His,
It's not a procedural issue. I think you're disagreeing.
okay,
Well,
fine. I
I'll
take
put
back
you
my
right on the
point of
speakers
order.
list.
Sure,
You can
sure,
put it
sorry.
on this. Go ahead,
And I
Aaron.
totally accept if this is something people really want. I just think that should be like the history of that should be noted. Also, just noting that we don't actually have any way of verifying anything that is said. If this presentation had come 2 weeks ago, we could fact check everything and continue this conversation, but we're not able to do that. And thirdly, I just wanted to make some more of a question. I'm wondering if students know this. I understood that they were invited multiple times to come present at council, and that this presentation was only why is it only being put on the agenda now when they've known about this for 30 days and they had multiple council meetings to present?
Thanks. Section?
Sorry, I have a logistical
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
Did I hear that Basima had a proxy? And besides that, is there anyone who doesn't have the voting? Oh, yeah. Okay, I found your. And well,
Okay, section you had before. Section?
Sorry, yeah, I just feel, I think there should be a chance given to SNS as well to present to council, just so that we can hear both the sides, because this is I consider this as a really big vote, especially when the the motion is on the floor of leaving SNS organization. So it will be really in the best interest of the council to have a better understanding of what is there and what is not there. And at the same time, just to comment on what Aaron said, that SNS is not presented to council. It's brought to my attention that SNS has approached last year to come to council and present several locations and wasn't allowed to present.
Okay, student senator, then we'll move to a vote. I think we've got a good balance of the discussion here.
Correct me if I'm wrong, it's as much a question as anything, but I believe they have already presented to us, not within the last 30 days, but in the fall sometimes. Is that it?
Yeah.
That's correct. So we have heard from them before. I asked them pointed questions. They answered them to a degree I personally wasn't satisfied with. So I've had my chance to talk to them here their side. I think we want to vote on something, and as was said before, we don't have the ability to fact check anything that's said.
Okay, thanks. It's a really brief point, otherwise I think we could move to a vote, but yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry, Black student community?
Yeah.
Cheers.
The question would be basically, the procedure is why they're being allowed a second, again, as Darren, totally forget him, but anyway. What? Dylan, thank you. Thank you, Darren. Has mentioned is they've already spoken before, so this would be more of a rebuttal if they're allowed to speak today. So it's actually not a presentation, so therefore I don't see the relevance of that as council.
Okay, thanks. We'll move to a vote. I think it's best. I think we've heard from all the sides here. All those in favor? Yeah. Is that
Can the
a vote
votes
order?
can the votes be counted?
Yeah, is that procedurally something that's usually done?
Yes.
The vote can be recorded.
Yeah, the vote could be recorded. Is that by each individual or?
I
Just count.
I just
Oh, sorry. Oh,
want- I
yeah.
just want
Okay.
the numbers.
Like a roll call.
Because we can't see all of
Yeah,
it
sure.
in the video.
Can I make a clarification?
Are you a council?
No, I would be the one presenting.
Okay.
Speaking rights.
What's that? Speaking rights?
Yeah.
Just a quick point.
Okay, just to be clear, we were never given an explicit invitation to present to council. We did, the president of our board did submit a request, from my understanding, to speak to council to Rob's yesterday. And so we did provide a notice of a request to speak to council, but we were never given an explicit invitation. And it was indicated actually in conversation with council, I believe, that we would be welcome to speak with council today, and so we did want to take that opportunity. All of this process, I think, as everyone's aware, has been fairly rushed, and so we had to adapt to circumstances on a fairly short.
Okay, thank you. We'll move to a vote now, and we're going to be counting that.
And point of information,
Point of
just so
information.
we understand the question.
Yeah, sure. The question is whether to amend the agenda to include a presentation by the SNS under under 7 presentations. That stated, all those in favor of amending the agenda as noted?
Oh, sorry, point of information, I'm sorry. What is needed to add this to the agenda?
2/3 majority.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, 6 in favor, 7 in favor. All opposed? So 13 opposed, so the motion does not pass. Are there any other amendments to the agenda?
I'd like it noted as well for architecture.
Sure.
Can I have it noted for?
Yeah, sure.
Section campus vote as well.
Yeah.
Does anybody want to abstain?
Yeah. if you
Yeah,
can-
did anyone understand? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4 abstentions. Do you want those noted?
Can you note mine, please?
Yeah, sure. Do we have those? Yeah, okay, perfect. Any other amendments to the agenda? Okay, yeah,
How many abstentions again? Sorry.
there were 4. Yeah. Okay, moving on. Approval of the minutes from previous meetings. Has that been circulated?
Last meetings were.
Wednesdays, yeah, sorry, so we don't have those ready yet. Okay, so moving right on through. Communications received, first of all, so letter from Students Nova Scotia dated February 26th respecting the motion to review the union's membership status in Students Nova Scotia. If I'm not mistaken, was this circulated? Okay, I'm gonna read it out then. Oh, shoot. Didn't actually accept the agenda, no. Sorry about that, guys, that was my fault. Adoption of the agenda, do we have someone to move that? Sure, undergraduate engineering, seconder, member at large. All those in favor of the agenda as it stands now, as amended? Okay, motion passes. Sorry about that. So
Can you note by abstentions, please?
what's that? No abstentions yet. Sexton, abstention, and architecture as well. Opposition, noted, sure. Just let me know if I'm going too fast. Communications received, letter from students of Nova Scotia. So I'm going to read that, and then more emails after that. Dear Mr. Christofi and Mr. Aziz, we are writing this letter to express our concerns about the prospect of the DSU disaffiliating from students of Nova Scotia. We are concerned both about the implications of disaffiliation for Dalhousie students and other post-secondary students across the province, and with the process being undertaken to consider such a decision. In our understanding, the Dalhousie Student Union Council is considering a motion to disaffiliate from students of Nova Scotia on February 27th. The last minute General Assembly has also been convened for February 25th in response to a petition from 101 students. Until February 23rd, the possibility of disaffiliation had not been broadcast to the student body except in the form of promotion for the General Assembly and during reading week, a time when students are not expected to be on campus and are unlikely to be tracking events of their student union. In contrast, in both 2012 and 2014, Dalhousie students voted in favor of membership within Students of Nova Scotia in referenda held fully in keeping with the DSU Constitution. This week's proposed decisions would overthrow these votes and notably reallocate tens of thousands of dollars in spending. Students of Nova Scotia has interpreted its bylaws to indicate that a referendum is necessary for the DSU to disaffiliate, given that referenda have been held in the past and that no specific alternative process is outlined in the DSU Constitution. It seems that individuals within the DSU are seeking to proceed through a council motion based on the vague clause outlining a process to change its existing membership level instead of a clear clause referencing how it can renounce its full membership. It is not fully apparent that even the conditions of this vague clause have been followed in terms of informing students and council the possibility of a decision. Clearly, it is up to Dalhousie students to interpret their own constitution, but we would suggest that DSU err towards greater consultation engagement, not less. Earlier in 2014, the DSU Council had committed to complete an advocacy review at arm's length from the executive to inform any decision on students' Nova Scotia membership. This project has not been pursued. Students have not been engaged to learn objectively about students' Nova Scotia, make their own assessment, and inform any decision by the DSU Council. Students' Nova Scotia was never contacted in reference to any type of advocacy review, despite DSU delegates to the Students' Nova Scotia Board being repeated asked for information. At this point, no information to our knowledge has been provided to students in response, to present the pros and cons of membership within Students Nova Scotia to inform any deliberations at council for the general meeting. The proposed general meeting is a highly flawed mechanism for the kind of consultation or decision on this issue, given that it is framed in a fundamentally confrontational fashion. It is unlikely to provide space for balanced discussion of the facts of the case and has been convened at the last possible moment with minimal steps to engage the broader student body. We do not view this as a legitimate consultation or decision-making process given the flaws in its organization and the fact that it seeks to encourage less than 1% of the student body who are not elected representatives to consider reversing a decision made less than 12 months earlier by a referendum with a participation of 10% of the student body. We are concerned that considering no information has been provided to inform the decision at council, all information will be provided at the last minute and not given adequate scrutiny. Certainly, last year's similarly dysfunctional process illustrated the real risk of inaccurate information being shared with the DSU Council and the importance of allowing time for fact-checking. While Students Nova Scotia and its members may seek to fact-check via social media as the DSU Council deliberates, this is clearly less than desirable. This letter should also act as a notice to the chair pursuant to Students Nova Scotia Governing Policy 21 that the DSU VP Academic and External Jacqueline Skiptunis has been absent without regrets from more than 5 meetings with the Board of Directors over the past 9 months. Given also that Ms. Skiptunis missed all board orientation activities during this year, we would advise that she should not be considered prepared to provide representation.
Point of information.
Yeah, sure.
Sorry, it's a privilege. Can you be a little bit more clear because I can't understand most of it.
Oh, am I not enunciating? Is that?
Speak a little louder.
Louder,
Sorry.
probably, yeah.
Okay.
And slower.
Sorry, guys.
Louder and slower.
Sure. This letter should also act as a notice to the chair pursuant to Students Nova Scotia Governing Policy 21 that the DSU VP Academic and External Jacqueline Skiptunis has been absent without regrets from more than 5 meetings of the Board of Directors over the past 9 months. Given also that Ms. Skiptunis missed all board orientation activities during this year, we would advise that she not be considered as prepared to provide representations as a fully engaged member of the board. No other Student Nova Scotia board member has been invited to present to council to our knowledge. The DSU has been a critical member of Students Nova Scotia /ANSSA since its inception. DSU delegates have notably held the chair position for 5 of our 11 years. Together, we have been making real progress in reducing student debt, improving access to financial assistance, increasing funding for graduate students, and strengthening student voice. All our organizations are concerned about the likely impacts of the DSU turning its back on the rest of the province. It would be terrible for the student movement in Nova Scotia to be further divided. Certainly, each student union is unique, but students across universities and college campuses also share many common challenges that we can better address together than on our own. We believe fundamentally in the importance of student union autonomy. The DSU absolutely should leave students in Nova Scotia if that genuinely reflects Dallas students' preference. However, we hope the DSU will recognize its responsibility to meaningfully engage and represent its students and follow due process in such a decision, instead of pursuing in a manner that we view it as unbecoming of a deliberative body such as the DSU. We believe that working together we can do more for our students, and hope that the DSU will continue to be a strong partner with our student unions moving forward. That's the letter, and proceeding with the agenda, there are 4 emails I'm going to read from Nathan Merrithew, Nicole Van. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing names.
I guess it's a point of privilege.
Yeah.
It's definitely like great if the chair wants to read them out.
Yeah.
These emails were sent out to some select counselors plus the DSU chair. I received them and I replied to these students. So I wondering if, just for the sake of time, we could probably print the emails and circulate them. That's a lot of emails to read out.
Yeah. Can we do that?
Because every email that's sent to the DSU chair doesn't have to be read out to council.
All of the emails contain one similar statement. If you'd like, you could read maybe that one statement.
Some of those students did write their own emails, to be fair.
Okay.
We'll just circulate it just for the sense I don't want to necessarily get involved in picking information out, but we'll circulate them. We'll have copies of it, and we'll make sure there's enough copies there.
Can you send those emails to our email accounts? That will be like quite easy.
I think it's pretty good.
Yeah.
It won't be as easy because we don't have a council listserv. Like we don't have we just have a list. So it'll actually take less time if I just go and grab the computer and print them from. But I like the issue that these things pertain to. It's not until further down the agenda. So are people okay with maybe if people are worried about time, you could proceed with the agenda and then have them distributed.
Does anyone have any objections to that? Okay. Does anyone else have any objections to it? Otherwise, okay, we'll get those out when. Yeah.
I also just have a question. When were the emails received? Throughout yesterday. Okay, so they
were
probably should have
response
been.
to the last meeting.
Yeah, they probably should have been voted on as part of the agenda. But
Yeah, just those 4 emails.
Yeah.
Just those 4 emails. Yeah. Okay.
One simple mention.
Yes. Is it a point of information or order?
So, yeah, my question is, did you receive just one? Because one email just received me as well. I received one of my association's email as well, and that has been CC'd to DSU chair as well.
Okay.
So I'm just making sure that you counted that email as well.
Okay. There's the 4 emails that are on the agenda here that we're going to be circulating.
Yeah, because I received one email as well.
Okay.
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 Sorry. So
Yeah.
I was wondering, in addition to printing them, and you send them to us so we can circulate.
That should be okay. Do you mind just writing if you do want that, write your email down and get it to me, and we'll try and get that out. No guarantees, but before we get to that, item on the agenda. Okay. Okay. Moving on to appointments. Was there anything on the appointments? No. Okay.
No appointments?
No appointments. Presentations. So we have Rams. You have the floor for 15 minutes. Okay.
If they're on using the PowerPoint rounds.
All right. So thanks everybody for giving me time to present, but felt obligated to speak as president of the organization. I have some supporting documentation here that I'd like to pass out. You don't need to read them as we go. I'll point them out when they're pertinent to my presentation.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So it's not like this is going to blow your minds, but at least this way you can see what we're planning to have. So the contents of this presentation primarily deal with the question that I had as I made my own assessment of students in Scotia, and I must reiterate that these are my thoughts. So it's you know, I don't put words in other people's mouths, but this is what I thought was in the interest of the union. I was just going to go over my journey, mention students in Scotia's pros and cons, in my opinion, go over what they offer and what they offer to DSU specifically, a cost-benefit analysis of, you know, of staying in versus leaving, recommendations for what we should do, and moving forward, what we want advocacy to look like. Because I added that section after I heard that come up. I went to this GM, they're like, oh, what are we going to do afterwards, right? Another point, so let's try to address that. So the question that I used to, this is basically a question that I crafted that would help me assess students in Nova Scotia. There's all kinds of angles you could look at the relationship between them and the DSU, but for me, it's all about, does the DSU's $90,000 annual investment in students in Nova Scotia provide value to Dalhousie students? Is it worth it? Are we getting our good return on investment on our dollar? And for me, that was like a way that I could look at it and still, you know, I was relatively inexperienced in the student politics scene, so this was a way that I felt I could make a fair assessment. So last year, I was here as VPI, and I voted to stay in Students in Scotia. Acted in good faith. I was my intention. Again, I was new to the game, so I thought this was an organization that could still have some, you know, something to offer to the union. I felt that it was something that could that could be useful for the Dalhousie students, especially at the provincial advocacy stage. We had just dropped out of CASA, so I was like, okay, if you drop out of students in Scotia too, maybe that's too much shock to the system, maybe that's too much change, maybe we won't be in a position to do our own advocacy. So that's why I voted yes. And this year I was like, okay, if I do continue, maybe I'll participate in the organization. You know, I've heard concerns that, oh, like, you know, people weren't participating fully. So I'm like, okay, maybe I'll participate fully. So this year we attempted to give Dal a leadership role in Students of Nova Scotia. You know, so we are the largest, and if you were to leave, we would be as big or larger than Students of Nova Scotia. So this could be decent context there. So we thought, you know, we could give Dal a leadership role. We could be vocal. We could say our own opinions. We could, you know, I mean, I've already heard concerns about their stances, about, you know, what they're doing research on. So we're like, okay, maybe we pipe up at the board. They'll change that to our view, you know. So I also became the administration of Students in Scotia, much to the chagrin of everybody. This was a very hasty decision, but at the same time, I wanted to learn more, contribute more. So I felt it was a good move, just so I could see how it could work, like the inner guts of this organization, right? So it's the second leadership position in there. So it's like, you know, I felt, you know, I mean, how can I participate any more than that, short of being president? And the reason why I was not even comfortable being president is because according to the governing policy now, if you are president of Students of Scotia, you relinquish your rights to represent your own university at the board. I mean, I thought it was true, but I would never ever dispel students. I would never want to be a president of Students of Scotia and not speak for the Dalhousie students before I spoke for the entire province. So okay, VP admin was as high as I would go. And I would hope to God that would be as high as anybody else would go who's in this role. So I tried to find evidence this year to answer this question. So now that I'm VP admin, I have access to the budget. I sign the checks. I approve the expenses. I did for the first time ever we produced quarterly reports, so you can find it online. I did a quarterly report on Students in Scotia and their budget. I had recommendations around those around that budget, but I'll get to that section later. I was muzzled. I wasn't allowed to publish this. So anyway, so this was my journey, and so this is what I've learned so far. So from what I understand, Students of Scotia, they do a lot of things well. They have excellent goal setting. In fact, the sheet that I'm passing out, you know, I mean, it lays it down pretty clearly. There should be a sheet that says vision, mission, values. Does people have that sheet? That's not going around yet. Okay. So I mean, it means it's okay. It's a pretty easy piece of work. I mean, when I read it back in June, I didn't see anything wrong with it. I'm like, okay, I agree with that. Sure, like education should be education should be more accessible and affordable. So I was like, okay, nothing here alarming to me. They have good reporting. Like I do appreciate, for example, the quarterly report that you might have received. I understand when you received it today, but I mean, it's a good document. You know, at least it breaks it down clearly where they're at, where their shortcomings are, what they're doing, right? It's good. And it ties into transparency with board goals and status. These quarterly reports are useful. You know, it's good and they're publicly available. I mean, they're vetted heavily, but that's a separate story. But the fact is that they do them, and they should be commended for that. It is a help for student union leaders to connect and collaborate. So, you know, it is nice to be in a room where you have, you know, Kadia, Mount Allison, even actually, last point, colleges. Yeah, you have a college rep there, which is great. You know, Kingston, really nice. It was, yeah, I found that these were some of the good things. When we started out, we mentioned this board education retreat, and we got this fancy binder, and it actually has good information in it, right? Like a statement of values, a breakdown of their opinion of like the climate of politics in Nova Scotia. So as a newbie student politician, as a noob, like, you know, I knew, like, actually it was a nice document for me to start off. Like, you know, what students Nova Scotia offers your union, that's also in here. You know, and I was like just making notes as I went along. It gave a little history of Nova Scotia back in their days when they were ANSA. So I'm like, okay, I liked it, you know, so that shows a bit of organization there, and I can pass this binder around if people want to think about it. So that was that. I mean, so I thought, okay, maybe there's hope. Has everybody received all these documents? There should be 3, plus the binder that's going around. But the cons, as the year progressed, you know, my naive optimism is where I don't like. I like to look at the best of this organization. So I thought like Students Nova Scotia is like, you know, and I mentioned this statement to Jacqueline, you know, it's like, I like this organization, maybe we can take it over and like, you know, make it our own, you know, so as opposed to like rebuilding from scratch in our own union, we can pretty much like just, pretty much take full ownership over it. So, but then, you know, as we progressed, we did more and more brainstorming sessions. There was like ridiculous amounts of retreats that we had to go to. It was hard for like, yeah, it was really hard for us to coordinate and like to actually show up to these things. We would receive like, you know, notice that wouldn't allow us to change our plans and stuff like that. So like, between the two of us, we barely, like, actually we had to leave at attendance, over 80% to most of the things. So that's why I disagree with a lot of points in the letter. It's simply not true. Between the two of us, we attended more than 80% of meetings. I guarantee that. So and obviously.
Clarification, overall, DSU was not attending at 1 meeting.
Oh, okay, there you go.
The entire year.
So see, I mean, that's why the letter to me was something I didn't even consider. Just dismissing the Anyway, staff, I found that despite all these brainstorming and visioning sessions, they were a lot of fun. And it was really fun to actually brainstorm with like all the other leaders from KNFX and KDI, et cetera, right? But I noticed it was like drastic changes to the organization were not possible. And I remember one conversation that we had at one of these retreats at night where we were discussing whether we would put reduction of tuition fees in our main goals for the year, right? And we argued about that for like a couple of hours, and everybody was frustrated. It was like 11 p.m., you know, at night on Friday, and it was just like we weren't getting anywhere. And then it essentially got shut down. It's like, you know, we can't get a decision today. And then even the president of Student Scotia at the time was like, I can't believe we're in a room on Friday night arguing about whether the tuition fee should exist or not. Right? So I mean, that's a good point. So I'm like, okay, great. Maybe there's hope. Maybe this organization will change its stance. So I'm like, okay. Perhaps. Yeah. Maybe 5 minutes. Yeah. Okay, I'll stop. Staff driven.
Can I make a motion to give more time?
Sure, is anyone opposed to that motion? No. Oh. Just 5 more minutes, or 5 more minutes? Anyone opposed?
5 minutes.
Architecture. All those in favor of that? Just 5 more minutes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
But I found like Jacqueline had tons of ideas to contribute, and I found that she was dismissed on a recurring basis. It's like, and it wasn't just by the board. Like, so the board would be like, okay, that sounds interesting, but then you'd have a member of the staff pipe up, you know, who would have a lot of experience, you know, who would be like, you know, no, that's not possible, or you know, I think it's a poor strategy. And that was a red flag for me. Why are staff shaping the minds of the board? You know, that's always a danger. It's a danger in this organization for sure. And it's also a danger, like, these are the top leaders in all the province, and like, you have one person who's like shaping the political mindset. And this person will be privy to all the board's discussions. Rarely will this person be asked to leave or be go on camera and discuss without the staff person. So to me, that was something that I wasn't okay with, and I discussed it with the president at the time, and at the time, was not okay with it either, but I don't think that changed. So the staff influence framed the research questions we were like the questions that we were investigating in our research. For example, the youth employment paper that got put up, right? I said, who set the narrative for this paper? Who did the research for this? It was the research person themselves. The board pretty much rubber stamped it, but the board wasn't the one who came up with the idea or the angle for the employment paper, and that to me was not okay. So it's just like if you have these staff people there who are there from year to year, it's not okay that they're framing the narrative and framing the research questions. You'll hear a lot of points, right? That you can't you collect data. It's all evidence based, right? So it's all evidence based. You have to collect data, and so that's why we can't jump to assumptions. But then, as anybody who's done research would know, the entire framing of the hypothesis will bias the way you collect data, the way you frame data, the way you analyze data. So I mean, that's just a flawed argument to begin with. Anyway, executive compatibility and participation. In any given year, if a DSU executive is not aligned with students in Scotia when it comes to their vision, their values, and their politics, they will have a very tough time. And that's not okay with me. So somebody like me, who might not know a lot about what's happening, I'll just say yes to everything that's happening. But if you have somebody who's you know what to do and you want to change the organization, then they will not even hear it. Then your ideas won't be taken into account. Executive opinion is secondary to the will of staff. Again, as my point mentioned, this is something that troubles me. Time commitments. The more time you put into Nova Scotia, the less time you'll be here on campus committing to Dallas students, and that was a problem to me as well. So it was, I had to do 3 hours a week for my VP admin position, and that was hard for me to do, honestly. And I had to go down to the hub office, which is a nice office, but it was, the more time I'm writing quarterly reports for students in Nova Scotia, the less time I'm doing work for students at Dallas. That's something that was in my mind. Lack of campaign clout. You'll find students in Scotia's campaign budget is actually smaller than the travel budget, and something like that just bothers me. So basically, when it comes to campaigns, this organization is not built to do that. Could it do that in the future? Possibly, but my recommendation to do that right now was dismissed. So I don't know if they will. Ineffective use of resources, things like staff burden. Have staff policies, for example, like if you're a staff member with your own laptop, you will receive an extra $200 per month because you have your own laptop. I mean, that might be a fine policy management-wise for some people, but for me, I'm like, I think we're a non-profit. I don't think we can afford to do that. So I mean, that was one of my recommendations to change it, but again, it was muzzles. Certain staff members, when they complete their contract at the end of the year, automatically receive a bonus. So I'm like, we're not in a position to give anybody bonuses. So I mean, it might sound like a hard ass, but at the same time, it's a non-profit. And people are paying you. And if you're telling me that you don't have money to do campaigns and you have money for bonuses, maybe we can find some restructuring, right? Like it's all about resource management, right? So maybe we can play with the numbers here. So feedback dismissed, not taken into consideration. Student union status overshadowed by staff. There's a failure to retain staff. So the director of engagement is an example. We had so many, the staff fluctuations this year were ridiculous. And so the comment that the DSU shouldn't do independent advocacy because we have a lot of turnover, we have a lot of change in vision. Same thing happens with board members change all the time. We had 3 officers quit already. I was supposed to quit in 2 because I was in the 4th. Within the span of 6 months. I'm not even kidding you. The first one quit within 3 weeks. And we also had the director of engagement. We went through 2 of them, and it was just a very messy process. And that's why nothing got done regarding to engagement. The last person to interact with students in Scotia around engagement was with Jamie Aaron. I don't know what happened there, but apparently it wasn't a positive interaction. The effectiveness of their engagement is also a cause for concern. The working groups, a lot of them don't actually get work done because, again, board members have a hard time finding time to meet. I mean, we have committees in the union that have a hard time to meet. So imagine coordinating a meeting between unions across the province. It's even harder. Lack of outreach. I mean, barely anybody knows what students in Nova Scotia is. They have very little recognition among students. They're more well known in government than they are students, and that to me also is a problem. Case studies are an example of a lack of direct student parts. Check it out. They just released these case studies, right? And I don't know if people check them out. They're on their website. You can go Google them. Essentially, what it is, these are the things that presented to us last time in July. Remember, this is somebody from International Student, right? They made them up, and I think that's what I personally found offensive. Like you're basically stereotyping folks. You're like, this is somebody from China, and I'm like, what the hell, right? So and we voted against this at the board. I was like, why? So the point that I brought up was that why don't you just find real students, profile them, and then you can put their profiles online, and they're like, it's going to take too long for us to go find students. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. That's why I think Dalhousie was the only school that voted no against the case studies that were released. So I'm like, that shows you something, right? So what students NS offers? They offer media contacts and training. They offer press release support. They offer campaign support, lobbying support, network with the government, research capacity. And this is also in the board education retreat binder that you can pass. Where students in Nova Scotia is great for smaller unions because they don't have internal staff capacity. They don't have, they usually outsource a lot of their things. They don't have their own graphic designer. They don't have people like that. Media contacts and training, we already have that. Our communications person was great. We have media contacts. And they're already established. And we have a system by which we do media training every year, so we don't need that. Thank you. Press release, but other student unions do, so it shouldn't be dismissed. Press release support. Again, we do press releases all the time. We're good at them. We know exactly how to release them. We don't need that support. We know how to write them. And we have staff that do that for us. Campaign support. That's in development. You know, this union isn't known for doing campaigns, but it is starting to. And we're building that. We're building more capacity to do that. We're coming it's almost becoming automatic in us, right? We've done more campaigns like in the last few years than have ever been done in the past decade. So it's something we're learning. So that's in development. Lobbying support already established. We booked, as we've shown over the past 2 months, we book meetings with anybody, everybody, like at every level of government. People realize that we're unique, we have different needs, different perspectives, and we respect that, and they would like to meet with us. We met with everyone. Yeah. Name a minister, and Kaylee's been super helpful with that. So I mean, shout out, like I don't know how she gets us in the door with all these folks, but she does. It's awesome. Anyway, so we have that. Network with government officials in development, so for example, is it intuitive for the minister to give us a call? When something happens. Not yet, but they're learning, because in their minds, the first people that will call was students NS and CFS, and that will be good enough because they assume that there's consensus and they're all homogenous, we're all one people. So that means the housing has to basically agree with whatever the hell student NS says. So if you have a different perspective on the topic, that's not the government officials won't be cognizant of that. So in the future, in development, what I mean is in the future, government officials will call students NS, they'll call CFS, and they'll call us. Sure. Okay. Quick. Research capacity. That is also development, but again, I'll get to that in future recommendations. So the cost benefits of students NS. Costs of staying in students NS, operation costs, we have a lack of available funds to build internal advocacy infrastructure. We have an inability to complete our primary organizational objective. If you look at our constitution, advocacy is the #1 thing we are doing, and it is one of the smallest items in our budget. That's my stuff, right? So it's about resource management. We have to do a better job in that. If we do terminate our membership, it would cost us $45,000. All we need is $45,000 a year of building internal infrastructure. So think about tech services. We don't need to call anybody to set up our own events, do our lighting, do this, because over 20 years we've set up that infrastructure. We have the lights, we have staff that are trained. We can do it better than most people, and we can do it cheaper. Why can't we do that with advocacy? So again, it needs time, but we can do it. Advocacy, relinquishing full control of our stances as you please. We're the housing, we shouldn't have to just, be silent. So we should retain control of our stances. If you look at the Students' Nova Scotia vision paper that I just sent out, remember when I said I agreed with the vision, mission, and values at the start of the year in that document? This paper blew my mind, because in my opinion, I thought they would always advocate for reduced tuition fees up till December. Right? I thought, because when I would talk to the executive director, somebody else would be like, yeah, totally. We're that's the direction we're heading. This is a press release on the academic group. The headline says clearly, Students of Nova Scotia says student movement should focus on financial assistance, not tuition elimination. In the paper that has been released, in addition, that vision paper, I would like the councillors to please turn to page.
Ryan, I'm sorry to interrupt.
May I have
20 minutes?
Motion
to extend 5 minutes, seconded. Sure. All those in favor, all opposed? Sorry guys. Opposed first. Start with that. And do you guys want those noted?
Yes.
Sure. Okay, all those in favor of the motion? Okay, motion passes.
So this blew my mind. This was if there's ever been any allegations no, maybe they really want free tuition, stuff like that, check this out. Page 6. There is a table as to why free tuition is a bad idea. So now, if this is something that council supports, then of course, by all means, support join the organization. But I didn't think I've never heard a single Dalhousie student who would be in support of that. I'm sorry, my experiences, I'm not the other executives agree with me. So I was like, okay, that means I was under the false impression for the past 8 months for this organization. So, and I think it's this document will open your eyes. I do encourage you to look at page 6 of the table. Okay, moving on.
JD has a comment.
Yes.
Yeah, it says a lot. This came out a week after the day of action, and hundreds of Dell students marched in the street for reduced tuition fees. This really pissed me off.
Yeah. So, and in my mind, I'm like, oh, they supported the rally, right? Yeah. And then bam, this comes out. I'm like, okay, So like I was kind of like talking with my tongue in my mouth. I'm like, I'm VP of an organization that whose own goals I'm also mysterious about. You know, so it kind of bothered me a lot. We can't. We found that, for example, by being part of Students NS, we can't participate fully with other student unions with diverse perspectives. For example, like it's almost taboo to talk about CFS or Kings or anything like that. And to me, that's not okay. We're all part of one movement. It shouldn't feel like we shouldn't participate in other people's activities just because there's historical differences. That to me was prohibitive. I also didn't like the fact that across the students staying in Students NS was the executive attention is divided between Students NS and DAL. As I said, if you are trying to engage with students, we should try to engage students with Dalhousie first and then Students NS. But it's like we should just be focused. Our efforts of just engaging people with the DSU, not just letting them know Students Nova Scotia exists, but letting them know the DSU exists, and we are having a hard time to do that already. So. Benefits of staying in Students NS, continuing of advocacy down traditional vision. So again, if you agree with the vision paper, if you do agree with the things done, by all means, then you can stay, right? And if you agree that boardroom lobbying is a primary tactic and that's the one you should stick to, Students NS, yeah, does that very well. But again, I'm of the opinion there are other tactics you can use, but that's fine. Opportunities to maintain consistent advocacy messaging with other student unions. So if you want to have, if it's okay with you that Housing, joins the band or joins the march, then that is also, or has a collective opinion with StateFX, Acadia, etc., then that's also a benefit of staying in schools with us. Some recommendations. So back to the question that I was asking, Students Nova Scotia is unfortunately, in my opinion, from my experiences as VP of an organization, it's not worth a $90,000 annual membership. $90,000 over 2 to 3 years equals $180,000 to $270,000. So we've been outsourcing our advocacy for forever. So is it worth it? Is it cost effective for us to do so? Unfortunately, I do not think so. If you do terminate membership in Students Nova Scotia and retain $45,000, we will be able to spend that money and stretch it far more within this organization and invest in ourselves for once. We haven't done that. Or we could drop down to associate member again. I just want to give people the option because it is an option. Status quo, however, is not an option. So I do strongly say that you have to make a decision. Like we can't be outsourcing advocacy for God's sake for the next 10, 15 years, considering that's the #1 priority. We can't do that. We must invest in building internal advocacy resources. So people will say like, oh, like how can we start? We won't be effective immediately. No, but these things take time. The $45,000 a year over 2 to 3 years, that's $90,000 to $130,000 worth of investment, and I guarantee you we will put out extremely good quality work, and I'll get into that. It's all about building advocacy capacity. We can do regular, large, and small scale campaigns and assemblies. Students of Scotia offers funds for student unions to organize their own assemblies. It's like $500 honorarium. We didn't use that money this year because we already do that. We have commissioners to do that. But it is good for unions who don't have that kind of, who have smaller budgets. So that's, again, we can make those dollars work here. We can do specific reports in specific areas, graduate students, international students. If you bring these work to Students of Scotia, these things usually will get turned down. Why? Because we're the only graduate school in this province. Why would they do research that's only for us? So it would give us a lot more flexibility. DSU can collaborate with both Students NS and CFX NS units. We cannot be ignored as represent 40% of students in this province. Governance review. So moving forward, future DSU advocacy, the governance review we're doing can examine the use of these funds. The initial thoughts would be to invest in, let's say, one more staff person that's focused on campaigns or specific research area support. That's a high cost maneuver. Or investment could be put into data collection and relationship management software. Like Kelly's a genius. She's just like the basic camp stuff that she set up. We can manage how these organizations we met with the minister. These are the promises that were made, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We can track that ourselves. We can do research. We can collect data ourselves. We can do that. Our ENA office did a survey last year. They collected all kinds of data and produced a report. The more we do that, the better we'll be at producing it. So we should stay independent and not join any of the provincial organizations because that goes against both principles of outsourcing. In 2 to 3 years, we will be able to produce high quality, specialized reports. So again, 2 to 3 years. This will take time, so I'm asking you to be patient. This is a major change to the organization.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
This last slide.
Last slide, okay, wrap it up.
We can organize regular high impact campaigns on ourselves. That clock, I don't know if folks heard, but there was a clock campaign that was put in Victoria Park. I mean, we have the resources, we could do that every month. And it took New Scotia 8 months to do it because of the lack of funds. So seriously, like, this goes to show. Procure materials at a lower cost. We order stuff for OB. We have connections with media. We have connections with swag people. If we do want to produce campaigns, we can do it much cheaper than New Scotia because we already have those contacts. We order massive amounts. We have bulk orders. So that's kind of a supply chain kind of thing. Build a media network. We already have it. We have a very strong media network. Build relationships with key decision makers in government and expand our network in government. Develop a system for outreach and mass student feedback, which will set our advocacy priorities on an annual basis. So we'll have systems that we can gauge what students feel are the biggest issues of any particular year. We can do that with time. Reflect varying viewpoints and topics depending on your constituency. We can also be respectful of the fact that different constituencies will disagree on different things. And our staff people, we can develop systems that basically reflect that diversity in our opinions as well. And so that's what I hope the future of DSU advocacy is, and that was the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, moving on from presentations to committee reports, and if I'm not mistaken here. Is it questions? Yeah, let's keep it short. Question answer.
Honestly, with you, just last night, a couple of days ago. I was working on it, but yeah, I had so much on my plate. I apologize. I wish I could set it up for constituents earlier.
So yeah.
Yeah. To be totally neutral. When I got there, okay, fine, I have to sign the petition or like I have to vote for this. First thing that came on my mind is like, what is SNSD? And I had no idea about what SNS do. And I believe that I emailed you, I emailed in my NE committee. I called Mahbub Bhai, I called Vishwa as well, external advocacy, my external advocacy. So my point is like taking informed decision. Like it's everybody's right is to take an informed decision. That thing doesn't happen on this issue. Why we have not been informed earlier that what's going on, and then actually we take the decision. Right now, it just motivated. Like now, okay, fine, they didn't get any chance to say something like that. But the thing is, like informed.
Sorry, just one moment. I'm going to interrupt you. Point of order.
Yeah.
Just like it's a question. What's the question?
No, I'm just giving like I'm not asking any questions, but
sorry to
point
interrupt
would
you.
be okay. I'm finishing with 1 minute. My point would be like
No, I'm sorry. Like,
It
it is a question and answer period, and we're gonna.
It's kind of like, yeah, you have to listen to me. If my contribution is that why I vote for it or why I didn't vote for it.
With all due respect, we're going to be getting to a discussion of this issue in a few more items on the agenda. That is going to be coming up.
Fine.
There is going to be a chance to have some dialogue on that. Right now, just let me finish. Just let me finish. I just want to focus on the questions for the presentation, and we'll be getting to discussion. I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm sorry to, but yeah. Architecture, you're next.
Rams, I appreciate the presentation. Thank you very much. When will I be able to ask my constituents about this new information before I go? Because I can't personally make a decision at this table, and nothing that's said tonight can change my mind because I have a poll of students that has told me how to vote tonight.
That's fine.
So I wanted to raise a point of order, but I wanted to let you finish that information was just the same as getting the last word in an argument. So I'm just curious how you expect the counselors at this table to now pull their students that they represent of this information that has been given.
Well, you've already done consultations. These are my thoughts.
But not on this information.
These are my thoughts.
So,
and if you wanted, this information was all online, and you want students to this website. I've not introduced anything new here.
No,
except for my own opinion. So, and I would imagine the DSU president's opinion would probably sway the opinion of the constituents, but I don't think that's a likely outcome. So,
Second point. Point of information.
Point of
To
information?
answer his question,
Okay.
Students of Nova Scotia is an association of student associations. Therefore, your constituents are not actually direct members. They're members of the union. According to the opinions that I've heard, you are fully capable of voting, I hope to God, with their word in mind and their wish in mind. But again, it's not your members that are direct members of Students of Nova Scotia. It's this association, this union.
And
That's
every
just
single
a
member,
clarification.
Without having too much back and forth, just a follow-up question.
it's still, you're saying that the members that I'm representing are not members of DSU?
They're members of DSU.
They are members of DSU? Okay, sorry, just clarifying, is that,
Member at large?
Well, first of all, before, there have been incidents of oppression, misogyny, and so on. How do you feel SNS addressed issues such as that? And how, you mentioned, for example, how certain, in the one presentation, how they stereotypically profiled kind of some students. So how do you feel SNS addresses issues of oppression, not only of women, but also of minorities and so on, if at all?
Well, I mean, this is anything I say won't be new to anybody, but it's something that's there 100%. I haven't been satisfied with the way it's addressed. Usually it's dismissed, or the organization is difficult. It's difficult for the organization to take a critical look at itself. That's pretty much it. I find that racist comments are made on a regular basis, and misogyny comments are made on a regular basis. Yeah. And when they are brought up, they're like, "Oh no, they'll make up some excuse, or like, we didn't mean that, or something else, right?" So it's what can I say? It is a culture in the organization. I apologize if I don't offend a lot of people, but there is a lot of privilege in the organization, especially a lot of white male privilege.
Graduates next, and then Sexton. We'll try and just keep the questions right on. We won't question. Bearing in mind that we're going to be getting to a discussion of this in a few agenda points, anyways, unless the question's directly on the presentation. Not that it was. Sorry, just speculating on that. Graduate.
You have been involved with students Nova Scotia from for almost a year. How many times you find that they are discussing any graduate students issues specifically?
Rarely. I think grad students might have come up in the vision paper that was put out earlier, but they're not a focus.
The previous one, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
They published in the previous agenda. What about this one?
No.
From May 2014 to the date.
Now that tells you something. It was discussed so often that I'm having difficulty even remembering when the hell graduate students were mentioned.
Yeah.
So that's the point. Barely none. Well, I think they might have come up maybe even in the youth paper, because graduate students technically still as youth, but I don't know how the hell they would think.
Yeah, thanks. That answers my question.
Yeah.
Black student community. Yep.
And this was a question that was directed before in our previous council meeting to Student Nova Scotia, but I would direct it to your opinion. And what has been their advocacy for students of color and Indigenous students in this, that are Indigenous to this province, in any of their publications or anything that they have done? Because I have not seen it, and I'm not saying it hasn't happened, but I'm just wondering.
Well, they have working groups on these things. These working groups, the flaw is that they rarely include people of the same, I guess, oppressed minority.
Okay, so has there anything come out of that? Has there anything come out of that positively, and what have we seen concretely come out of Student Nova Scotia, other than they've set up meetings and had working groups?
So the closest thing I can think of is that equity report that came out, and accessibility, but that glanced over racialized students' issues.
Yeah, that one didn't have racialized students in it.
Yeah, there you go. That was the closest thing they've done.
Student representing the face of color, so that was why my question was.
No, nothing focused on that.
Thank you. Okay, that's it for questions then. Thank you. Well, was there another one? Oh, sorry, yeah. Member at large.
Okay, so first of all, thanks for your presentation. So I'm interested, based on your presentation, to vote no, because 20 minutes you talk about disadvantages and 5 minutes about the advantages. So the question is, in case of research capacity, so what they did and what they didn't get to the student.
I didn't catch the last part. In terms of research capacity,
What they did and what they did not for the graduate students.
for graduate students, okay. So at the start of the year, at one of these retreats, they have a brainstorming section on what areas they should research. And so everybody writes on a sheet of paper what the areas should be. The ones with the most check marks are the ones that obviously they only have like one staff researcher, so like can't produce too many papers. I think graduate students was written, but it had very little tick marks next to it, so it wasn't a priority. So in terms of that, a lot of staff capacity has not been dedicated to graduate research.
Point of information. In one of the documents that I received, because I represent Dow grad students as well, they were saying that they secured $3.7 million in grad scholarships last year.
So that was last year. So this year is in terms of research, that's completely separate.
Okay.
Yeah, so in terms of research capacity this year, maybe it wasn't focused because they can't research everything in every year, right? So this year wasn't a year for grad students, but maybe last year, as you're saying, might have been separate. International students, I remember, only because we argued about it for like 2 weeks. It was basically the notion of what should our ask of international students be. It wasn't to remove differential fees. I think what was settled is that we should get 5% of international student scholarships.
But in terms of the scholarship, I think most of them is for the Canadian, but for those ones has the PR, not for the international students.
That's a very good point. Yeah, that's true.
Board of Governors member?
Yeah, just a point of information. That was something that the Liberals promised in the 2015 election platform, and it had very little to do with any student association lobbying, but
3.7 million?
the graduate student scholarships.
Oh, is that what you're talking about? Oh yeah. That was
from the Liberals.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to committee reports, which again, there are none. Thanks, Rams. Old business, motion to submit the Dalhousie Legal Aid Service Society's proposed referendum question to the student body. Is there a mover for this motion? First of all, Lee, is there a seconder for it? Black student community, can you motivate for it?
So I will just give a little brief introduction about the clinic, and then I'll pass it to Evan Kuhl, who's a community legal aid worker at the clinic, and he'll just give a brief presentation about the levy. And so the Dow Legal Aid Clinic, it's been around since 1970, and it's located up in the North End. We do a ton of work with low-income communities, communities. We do a lot of residential tenancies stuff, criminal, youth criminal, and family. We have a program called Telelinks where anyone can call in and we'll look into any legal problem that you have. We can give you some research, some advice on issues that you have. A lot of the time they're related, again, to residential tenancy stuff or income assistance or disability. We also do test case litigation and are looking to advance, we advance and support a wide range of social justice movements and community groups. And the clinic is also an opportunity. It's a clinical environment for law students.
Oh yeah, sorry.
That's okay. It's a clinical environment for law students. So they have 3 rotations of law students there a year, and it's a teaching clinic. So we get to work with lawyers on cases, supporting various types of very complex cases, and supporting and working with people who are really, really awesome. So I'm going to pass it to Evan without any delay.
So thanks for having me. As Lee was saying, I'm community legal worker with Dalhousie Legal Aid Service. Myself and my colleague Megan, what we do for the most part is run the Community Legal Services Program. We represent mostly low-income people in matters around income assistance, residential tenancies, debtor rights, and small claims. Our Community Legal Services Program partners with community organizations across the city to offer consultations on, to provide legal information and summary advice, and we end up representing people at, well, often.
Sorry to interrupt, just recognizing a point of information.
Sorry, Evan. I would just want, can you just clarify if you're talking about the society right now or the clinic?
I'm speaking about the clinic, and then I'm going to touch on the relationship between the society and the clinic.
Great.
Yeah. As well, we have staff lawyers who represent clients. They focus on a lot of issues that are relevant to work that's happening on Dell campus. Our executive director has a specialty in disability rights. Suzanne Lippke, a staff lawyer, is representing folks who are challenging the gender marker on ID requirement in Nova Scotia law of relevance to the trans community. Our other staff lawyer, Shauna Hoyt, is a member of the African Nova Scotian community and has represented people in human rights matters in that community. So basically what this, we established the society in the last year with the intention of creating a student version of the Community Legal Services Program. We're hoping if this levy passes through the society, we'll be able to form those partnerships on campus to deliver these same services to students. Just for some context, bargain basement, like we're talking bargain basement, ambulance chasing, kind of lawyer, it costs about $300 an hour. For a community legal worker like my time or Megan's time to represent one person in a residential tenancies complaint probably costs between $1,500 and $2,000. As well, notary services. So health professions especially need their documents notarized when they graduate. In a mainstream law clinic, that costs somewhere between $50 and $100 per signature, depending on the clinic. So we're hoping to offer these services to students for free. The society also, we're really hoping will serve as a bridge between the work of the clinic and campus. Lee and I were talking earlier today about an Access to Justice speaker series where folks who are doing work in the community that's relevant to work that's happening on Dalhousie campus will have an opportunity to kind of create that bridge. As well, we do, seeing the presentation on advocacy, basically our clinic, in addition to providing legal services, is set up to do advocacy around policy. Just yesterday, I was in a meeting with the director of residential tenancies, and I was discussing a few different issues with members of, I was there with members of Nova Scotia Acorn. In that meeting, one issue that's of particular interest to international students came up around damage deposits being clawed back by landlords who kind of count on international students not knowing their rights. So this is the kind of work we do, and this is what we're hoping to extend to Dalhousie campus. I'm happy, Lee and I, well, to speak for Lee, we happen to take questions. We do a lot of work at the clinic, so it's sometimes hard to represent it in a soundbite. If anyone has questions, we're here.
Thank you. We'll move into a discussion and just have you guys here, and any questions, please fire away. So I'll start a speakers list up. Not, well, yeah.
So we had a discussion about this at the Board of Operations, and I think that the chairs of Board of Operations will get into that. Is that reasonable to say?
Yeah.
Actually, do you want to speak before me? I feel like you should have been second on the speakers list.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Hi, so I'm the chair of the Board of Operations. In reviewing this levy question, first of all, I'm going to open up by saying that this is not a decision that's binding on council, but as you all know, the Board of Operations looks over levy questions for legal, financial, and operational goodness. That's not the right word, but that's how it goes. And unfortunately, the Board of Operations has actually voted this down, this levy. I think it's really relevant to give sort of some points on that and give you a little bit of context there. So we meant to vote on it on Monday, and as you know, at the last council meeting, we didn't have it yet because we were waiting for an e-vote to come in. So the email vote did come in, and should I say the reasons why people, is that okay to say that? Okay, the main reason was just concern with both the fact that it doesn't state that all members of the union can be part of the society in the constitution, and the other thing was that there was confusion around it being aligned with the Dalhousie service, and because of that, the Board of Operations chose to state an operational issue with it. yeah, I can try to answer questions about that. It's been sort of like a weird thing. I've never been involved in a levy question getting shut down before, so it's kind of a weird process. Yeah, I guess maybe just another thing that's worth saying is I think that it would have been really great to have more time to work this out, and we sent a list of questions along on Wednesday, which I never got a reply to.
Thursday, you sent them yesterday, and I haven't replied.
Was that was never sent to me
Was this afternoon.
by Ron?
Right.
I don't have any emails ever in my email that are from your email address.
Okay, well, I mean,
Yeah.
Evan, do you want to take the opportunity and maybe address some of the things and?
Yeah, that would be great. Like that would be great.
Right, so you asked about forecast expenses. We base that on average salary, which is a bit difficult to calculate because as an entry-level community legal worker, my salary, you might imagine, is less than a staff lawyer with 20 years experience. So we spoke to how we calculated that in our answer. For volume, just to be clear too, we already represent Dalhousie students. I have income assistance. I mostly represent people in income assistance matters. I'm representing a Dalhousie student on an income assistance issue right now. My colleague Megan is representing as a Dalhousie student on a residential tenancies matter that's actually going to judicial review in the Supreme Court right now. So Dal students find their way to us anyway. When we start making these services more available, we expect them now to go up. We're already providing discounted notary students for notary services for health sciences students, as well as international students, commission services. If you're bringing like family to visit, or most immigration matters actually need document commissioned. So based on numbers of students, we kind of on the notary and commission services, numbers of students in health sciences and international students. That's where those numbers came from. The rest was based on staff time. So, for example, if you had Sue Young, a staff lawyer who specializes in family law, do a workshop on child protection, a 3-hour workshop on child protection for the School of Social Work, that would probably cost close to $1,200 just in staff time alone. So I provided more information there. You asked if at the end of the year the forecasts are wrong. So with the society, they're a new society, so they've been trying to talk about what their programming is going to be. There's been talk about starting a conference or participating in a DLR. So if there's unspent money, we would probably look at putting it into more programming. You asked about the per hour cost attributed to providing the service. I already spoke to that. Service costs vary. The sessions provided, how long do the sessions provided to students? This question, like we just got these questions yesterday, so we were doing our best to answer. We weren't quite clear about what sessions meant, but for summary advice consultations, those usually run between 30 and 60 minutes, and that would be someone saying like, hey, I want to break my lease, can I do that? Or I got a parking ticket, can I fight this? Like, it's not a matter of representing someone, but providing someone with information and advice that they need to represent themselves. For taking on a full-fledged property law case, like say a residential tenancy case, I'm representing someone in the Residential Tenancies Board next week. Just in the last month alone, that's probably been 20 hours of staff time, and that's not counting resources needed for evidence gathering.
Sorry to interrupt, I just kind of want to have like a 1-1, and then we're going to have a few people kind of discuss some of the things, bring it home with the speakers list that I've got on the go.
Sure.
I just wanted to make sure that you had addressed some of the things that she had brought up, just for the interests of
Can I just address one?
Yeah, just wrap it up, sure.
Yeah. So there was a question about whether we can represent people on issues in relation to Dalhousie University. And this has come up before, but we can't actually do that. We're employees of Dalhousie University, so under the Barristers Society Code, that's a conflict of interest. And then that was just the last main point. The rest is kind of repetitive.
Thanks, Evan. I have Sexton up next and then Jeremy.
Yeah. Thanks for giving up a brush up around what's the whole thing. Right now, for me, I'm really confused what is it, a society or is it a clinic? Who are the staffs? Who are going to be the staffs? Who are members of the society? Who are not members of the society? So, and secondly, my question was something else, but then Ali just mentioned at the end that the BOPs voted down, not in favor of having this levy passed. So that altogether makes me really confused as a councillor, whether, of course, I would trust the BOPs in their procedures and operations, but that puts me on a spot of deciding whether I have to vote in favor of vote against it. That being said, I'm just really confused. The question is, maybe you have already mentioned this before. I'm sorry for asking this again. What makes you decide that you need 2.50 from a full-time and 1.50 from a part-time? Like,
Yeah, and if you just want to kind of hold on to those questions, or Evan, if you want to just kind of answer those when you're up next, we're just going to move on to the speakers list. Jennifer, go ahead.
I can actually address a few of those.
Okay.
So the society was created in the fall as a type 3 society. It's brand new. The clinic has been around for, I think Lee mentioned, since the 70s. Is that what you said? It's been around for a long time. So the clinic is what we've been talking about with all of the incredible work that's being done. And law students do internships. Is it called an internship?
Like a clinical semester, yeah.
Clinical semester at the clinic. Like it's amazing. The clinic is fantastic and does amazing work. The society is brand new, and the money would be going to the society. What we haven't figured out, and this is my personal hesitation, so I voted no in the Board of Operations meeting, and I'm going to vote no tonight, and that's a really hard place for me to be in because I really support societies, and all of you really know that. And I feel really uncomfortable voting down a levy, especially because I really want students to be able to have as much say in what happens in the union more than council. But I'm worried because we don't have clarification yet whether the financing is going to be financing the service of the university or whether it's going to be how it's going to be supporting the actual society. And there's just we need to do some work on it, and I have full faith that we can work this out in a year and then really figure this out. But I'm really nervous about it for right now.
VP Finance, I have next.
So we discussed this in the Board of Operations, and the key issues are related to there is a Dalhousie Legal Aid Service, and in DSU we have lawyers coming every week to take students' appointment. So the question was that we're duplicating the service through a society, or whether we're supporting a service that may in future create avenue for Dalhousie services to collect money from students in another way, because students are paying to university through fees, and that is these services are getting in return. But if this new avenue was explored, maybe some other question arises, some other services form a society linked to that and create levy from the students. I'm not at this point comfortable with that. And another thing about the finance, the way I understand at this point, this society will collect the money from the students through DSU and then hand over most of the bulk of the amount to the legal aid service. And from my position as VPA for whoever
sorry, point of information. Give the money to the clinic. That's what you meant.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry.
So from my position for the next VPFO is who is going to audit, because all the money is going to a legal clinic, and at this point I'm not sure how the audit process would work. Like all other societies, I audit them and transfer the money, but it looks like that it will check that they got a check to the clinic, and I might not have no access to the clinic audit information. And I think that the amount is at this point it's written it will be the second highest levy after CKDU if it is passed. So I think we need more work done into it, because after leaving it to the student body, it's a huge amount, more than gadget, more than loaded letter, more than all the society. But at this point, I think the board was not fully sure about this operation and other issues. So I think some more work needs to put on this to make it a way that societies like this can have students' money. But I think at this point, I'm not confident.
Thank you. Next up, I have student senator. Sorry.
Yeah, that's cool. My name's Ali.
Ali, okay. I'll try to remember this one.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that it's I just want to make sure that it's clear what happened to the Board of Operations. This wasn't like a bunch of us being this sucks, we need to shut this down. It was a bunch of us like having questions that weren't answered. And I also want to say that I think it should be like the opportunity for everyone in this room to hear the concerns of the people who are on the Board of Operations, right? I'm just the chair, I'm not a Board of Operations member. Hear those opinions so that you can think about what we've been thinking about, and then like let's try to like get answers if we can. And I think if those problems get answered tonight, it doesn't make sense to necessarily just agree with what the Board of Operations did. Yeah, I just wanted to say that so that everyone knows that they have like freedom here to try to figure this out with us, because I think we want to leave with as many people happy as possible.
Thanks, Tyler. Architecture next.
I don't really know how I'm going to do this, but I was wondering, I have two questions, I guess. One is, I'm wondering if we could add checks and balances to the wording of this to make sure that they're following through with something and pass it with something like that. And I'd like to move into like a moderated caucus about that issue, and if that was something that could be done. I don't really know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
Surprised that I need to do it, but
Yeah, before we move on to speakers list, Lee and Evan, how do you feel about that? Are you really like tied to the motion as it's now worded?
Point of information, just like logistically, are we able to get this? I understand that this is a timely issue, and logistically, are we able to get this like re-reviewed by the university and those bodies that need to review this, so that the same thing doesn't happen to stuff that happened to South House last year? Like, will this, like logistically, can we adjust this wording and still have this go through this election?
I'm not saying adjust any of the wording. I'm saying like put in more wording that's like the intent. The intent was.
Like I know what you're saying,
Yeah.
and like I would be totally open to doing it. I'm just like, I just want to make sure that we can logistically do that before we even go into the conversation about it.
Depends on the degree of the change. I don't know what. We gotta figure out the wording soon. It's taking a while, I guess.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to open it up to a discussion about just doing that as an option.
Okay, well, really quickly, it doesn't sound like is just that not logistically possible? It's gonna be pretty difficult. Does anyone know?
It's risky. It's risky business. I would advise against it. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's on you folks. If you approve any changes here, then don't blame us if it gets rejected because of technicality, because you approved it.
Yeah.
The main issue with the university is the amount. This is a new question, so it's not a huge deal. But I would just, if council is trying to figure out a way to create checks and balances, I'm not sure that they belong in this question. And one of the things that I've heard about last year's set of questions is that they were overly complex and a lot of people were critical of them. And so I would just remind council that that's an issue that's been brought up before. And that was one of the things that Grant and I did when we reviewed questions, was to try and make them as clear as possible. So I don't think that there's a procedural issue based on what needs to happen, but just that if best practices wise, there might be some issues.
Thanks, guys. And I think so. Just to kind of sum up some of that sub-discussion there, I think possible, very difficult, and logistically potentially problematic. So I'm just going to continue on with the speakers list unless anyone has any specific motions to change or anything. So Saxon, I have next up, and then Rams.
Yeah. Before I can speak, just to what Daniel you said about making amendments to making adjustments. That is what I think Jen mentioned. It would probably Bobs would again verify it throughout the year and then finally understand what's right, what's wrong, and probably bring it to the next year. My question was, since we are having this levy increase, I believe even the DSU is offering legal services. How different is it from the DSU legal services that's currently offered, and how different, like what in addition is this society going to offer?
Thank you. Rams?
Yeah, checks and balances. Yeah, actually, he's right. It was in the MOU constitution, so we wouldn't have that here anyway.
Point of information.
Point of information.
What's the question?
I'm sorry. Yeah, is there any way someone can answer this question first before we have someone else? Like, unless the other speaker person.
We do offer advice, we don't do notary, right? We don't do notary. For how much? That's what we're going off, we're budgeting. Yes, so we provide all these services. So the thing is that
Is that addressed? Sexton?
Well,
Report
as long as
information?
notary is the only thing that they're doing.
No, they're doing 3 other things, but I can't speak to that.
I have another point of information.
Sorry, what service are we talking about exactly? Is this legal services directly provided by the DSU, or is this like student advocacy services?
No, DSU legal aid.
Okay.
Okay.
Legal consultation service.
Rams, continue.
So, I voted in support of this at the board. I thought that it is flawed. But like what's presented to you isn't perfect. So I agree with the principle of it. You know, if students do want expanded legal services, they could vote for them. However, what needs to get figured out is how this money will be managed. That students have control over this money. That the staff of the legal aid clinic do not influence the disbursement of this money or how it is used. And these things can be worked under the MOU Constitution. So I thought, you know, we could still do that working. What just changed my mind right now is the notion that, and this was an ethics questions which was just sent out a couple of hours ago, is that students will not be able to use the service against the university itself. So that is for me a personal deal breaker. That, you know, I'm in support of everything that they're offering, right? And then, you know, if students want to pay for them, they can. But if they're paying for a service that they would not know from this question that they can actually use this service against the university in some capacity. And that's a problem. If you're paying $90,000 or something over in a year that you can't use fully, I don't think that's correct.
Thanks, George. I have the in the back from Black Hoodie, and I'll just kind of.
My name is Michael.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, yeah, Michael. Good to know. Sorry, there's another guy in the back there. That's before you, both Black Hoodies, I guess. Sorry. Go ahead.
So my name is Adrian Lake. I'm a law and MBA student. I'm also a member on the BOPS, committee, and so I abstained from the vote simply because I volunteered in the clinic in the past and worked on some of the cases with the clinic. I haven't in the last year or so, so you know I can only speak to my personal opinion and the way that I thought it was structured. The key issue here for me was that we have a question before us about whether or not we should be channeling student funds into a Dalhousie service that offers a benefit to our students and as well the broader community. And the concern here is that the university has cut funding to the service, and so this levy is used to then support the continuation of those services here at the school. In terms of our ability to monitor the funds and the funneling of the funds, it was my opinion that we don't have that responsibility because what the society is doing is providing the service, and they're paying for that service through the legal aid clinic. And so what we have an ability to do is monitor the output of what the clinic has offered towards the students as a form of how much we paid for it. So if we pay $100,000 from the society into the clinic and we receive 200 students who have full representation at a tenancy board hearing, that's a direct measure of the services that are being paid for through the society, through the clinic. I think that the other side of this is that there's nowhere, and someone can correct me, there's nowhere in policy that doesn't allow it, that doesn't allow this type of activity to go through. The only thing it doesn't allow is the membership issue, which in terms of the membership issue, I think that can be addressed. It's not something that needs to go through. So for this committee, I think, you know, whether we judge the activities of the legal aid clinic and what they're doing and how they're doing it, we haven't really judged how other societies are operating their services and whether or not those services are appropriate for the money that they're spending. So for example, we just, I believe, provided or allowed the levy question to the hiking society that's here. We're not going to ask what type of buses they're taking in order to kind of get through to these camping trips. We're providing that they're going to provide an affordable service and that they're not mishandling funds and misappropriating. And my reservation here is that Mabu echoed the same, is that the university has cut those funds and now it's being kind of asked from the students to help pay for that fund. My opinion is that we should allow students to vote on that, and being open and transparent as to exactly what they're about to receive. And it's up to them to make that decision as to how and if we're willing to pay the clinic the funds that are necessary to receive those benefits. But I think if there is a measurable thing here, it's just, are we willing to pay the legal aid clinic for the benefits that are enumerated and that you can follow through on? And in terms of the BOPS meeting that took place, I think as well, and I don't know if Ali had touched on it, is about who's present at those meetings and what's happening. And so, you know, a lot of the executive are there, Ali's there, I was there, and Craig as well was present, I believe.
Okay,
So-
I'm going to try and move things on. We've been on this motion for a bit
I'll put it
now.
up there.
I want to give Evan a chance to finish up. I know Jennifer's point, Michael, and then there's another lady too. So there's 4 of you left on the speakers list. If you can just kind of keep it to a minimum if possible.
No, I'm fine, I.
You're okay? Okay.
Yeah, my question is also the same thing, like, I think this is providing the legal aid now, lawyer, and lawyer is also dealing with all the issues that have been mentioned here. So I just, my question was like, what extra they will offer, like, all the things now DSU, lawyer is actually not providing. This is communication fee, right?
Okay, thank you. Michael, and then Evan, and then Jennifer.
Just really quickly, I guess. Just looking in this, I actually am fully in favor of supporting the housing legal aid because they've done, it is a great thing in the society, it's a great addition to it. But I have an issue with actually this part, how this is written, because I'd like to put a point where it says, you know, the levy would help, you know, support would offer the following menu of service to students free of charge if this levy is passed. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you have to provide free legal, at least a free legal consultation to anybody that contacts the Dow legal aid anyhow. That is a service offered through the city. So you don't have control over that. So if you don't get the levy, doesn't mean you can turn students away as long as they follow, like, I've never heard of anybody being turned away from there. I might be wrong. And some of the things that you're offering that are free of charge, some organizations offer them free already in the city. So I'm just concerned about, I think we already heard too about that some of these things were offered. I think the actual legal aid services and the society offer far more than what you've left up here on this list. So you've sort of shorted yourself. So based on this, I'd say no. But knowing what the society does, I'd say yes. So that's just actually the wording here really is not good.
Thank you. Evan, and then Jennifer.
Just to respond to some of the concerns, the Constitution and the MOU are up for negotiation. We've been in touch with DSU staff about reworking the Constitution to be more reflective of DSU policy and also as inclusive as possible. For the oversight of the money, that is something I agree has to be dealt with through the MOU. And when that was being drafted by other Dow legal aid staff, it was kind of conceived of as a draft that we could take to the DSU and negotiate with. We are very good at providing legal services, not so much in navigating. This is a new territory for us, and the student society members have been in place for a little while now, but it's still new territory. But I mean, most of the concerns around oversight, I think, can be addressed with the MOU, which we're open to discussing. And thanks to you for saying we shortchanged yourself, but I think that one thing that's really missing from the list, by the way, I came onto this project 2 months ago, so a lot of this was done before I came on. I was just available tonight, which is why I'm here. But one thing that we can offer that I believe is not currently happening is the representation. We receive, you're right, like we don't turn people away for legal information. However, the money we get right now to represent people is specifically to represent low-income people as defined by Nova Scotia legal aid criteria. So if
sorry, Evan, if you just want to wrap it up. So
yeah. So right now we just don't have a mandate to represent Cal students in the Residential Tenancies Board and other matters. So this would give us that mandate. So when it comes time to, you know, caseloads build up. So yeah.
Thanks, Evan. Jennifer.
So Evan's right, this is totally new territory, which is why we need to be really careful with it, because we will be setting a precedent for like potentially funding university services. And like there are so many different things. So like Adrian mentioned the policy around the finances, around the audit. We actually do have very specific policy around levy societies being audited and reviewed, as we've talked about all here. But like those things can be changed to accommodate this, because this is a new thing and we can like make those adjustments. But we need time to really think this through and make sure that we're making the adjustments correctly and make sure that everyone's on board. Yeah, so just remember that this is setting a precedent, and so it's really important. And I just want to mention that we haven't actually had a lot of contact with the society or like members of the society. It's been mostly contact with people from the clinic. And so it would be really important for us to maybe allow this society to develop a little bit and get its teeth in, and then we can talk about like doing a levy increase, since it'll be basically blowing this up to be the second highest paid society, actually the second highest paid society on our campus. So like there's just some concerns around that.
Thanks, Jennifer. Okay, so let's move on to vote on the, yeah, what is it? Was it a point of, I hadn't added you, like I was saying, there was just the 4 of them left. Is it a procedural issue?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
I mean, not a procedure, just a quick comment.
Okay.
There is another thing that we also need to know, maybe the Bobs would want to know, that the clinic is for the community. So if we pay a levy, is it also going to serve the community or just for the students, or how are we ensuring that the levy is only used for
Okay, and
students?
again, I'm sorry, I think this is getting to be a kind of repetitious discussion, point taken. Is there any procedural issues to be made? Yeah.
You count the votes.
Yeah, we can count the votes. So moving on to the motion to submit this as a question for the referendum to the student body. All those in favor of submitting it to a vote? All those opposed? So it's 12. Any abstentions? Okay. And all those in favor? Okay. So the motion does not pass. Moving on then.
Can I have an
Next,
extension noted, please?
yeah. Sorry, absolutely. Anyone else want their abstention noted? Architecture, Michael, and Ali?
Yeah.
Yes. I'm learning. Okay. Anyone else? Okay, good. New business. Review of the Indians membership status in Students Nova Scotia. I believe there's a motion with that, and I will just speak. So the motion itself is, well, I guess Rams, why don't you introduce it? We'll talk about how we're actually going to be doing the, because there's 2 options within the motion, but we'll start by, it's been forwarded by Rams. Is there a seconder for the motion? Seconded, Jacqueline. Rams, you have the floor, and maybe in it, if you can just discuss how you'd rather have that kind of framed in terms of either terminate or terminate membership.
But don't you both have like a little bit of a conflict of interest because you're members of? I just think it's a conflict of interest that you're members of SNS and you're voting for lead. I just.
Okay, do you want to note it?
For information.
Representing Dow students.
Yeah.
At SNS.
Okay, before we just open this up to a discussion.
Just saying.
Do you want that noted?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, sure. Is it a point of information, point of order?
Aren't we all members of SNS? Aren't we all technically members of the student?
No, we're not.
Okay.
Members. Like voting members.
Rams has the floor. Point noted, point noted.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all.
Thanks.
Can you put the motion up?
Yes.
On it.
Thanks, girls.
So I'll read it out. Whereas the Students' Nova Scotia Constitution requires that a member student union give notice of its intention to terminate its membership or change from a full member to an associate member by March 1st, hence the meeting today. Whereas the Dalhousie Student Union has been reviewing its advocacy approach, therefore be it resolved that the Dalhousie Student Union A terminates a membership / change its membership status from full to associate member of Students' Nova Scotia. So it's up to you folks to whether you want to split this motion, one for terminate and one for change, and then you can debate both concurrently.
I move to amend the motion to read, be it resolved that the Dalhousie Student Union terminate its membership in Students Nova Scotia.
Second.
Or you can do that.
Yeah, seconded, and that's friendly. Friendly. Okay, so to vote on that amendment, so let's just, can you repeat it?
I move to amend the motion so it will read, be it resolved that the Dalhousie Student Union terminate its membership in Students Nova Scotia.
Thank you. Are there any opposed to amending the motion? Okay, all those in favor of?
Sorry, point of order, can you have a discussion around that, please? Or you just?
The motion, you discuss it after.
So it's point of
Yeah,
order.
okay, yeah, okay, we'll discuss that amending, yeah. Speakers list on the, so it's on the floor then. Is there a seconder for it? Did I get that? I second. Second, member at large. Okay, discussion on the amendment to make it, to have it terminate its membership. Sorry. Student Center, yeah.
Yeah, okay, Dylan, by the way. So you've expressed before, and also we've gotten quite a few emails saying that there hasn't been enough discussion about this. I don't know how we can discuss it if we can't have a motion about it. So if we're gonna even explore the option of leaving, let's make a motion about it and discuss it.
I'm not opposed to this motion. I'm opposed to the amendment.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
So can I just maybe provide a brief clarification? So just when people are debating, they need to just debate why they are in favor or opposed to excluding the change to associate membership, or only including terminate. Just, sorry, that's what Greg and I were talking about here, is that based on Robert's rules that that's what the discussion should be right now. If you have discussion about the quality of the motion, it'll have to happen after the amendment.
Do we have to follow Robert's rules? I thought in discussion before, we're not bound.
Yeah, but it's just that it is best practice that right now, when people are discussing, they should be discussing the amendment on the floor.
So discussions on the amendment, Student Center, and then the Brown.
Yes, point of information. Can someone just outline the difference between what would constitute full membership versus associate membership?
Sure, yeah, if someone can touch on that.
Associate membership is half the cost, but you do lose your vote. You still have to attend all the meetings.
Okay, Rams, you're up.
I don't know if it would be wise for us to eliminate it right off the bat. I mean, I still think like it's a pretty big decision. So I mean, people should they do debate it. Like I think it is worth it to debate the change as well, just for like debate's sake. I don't know. Seems like it's like we shouldn't like jump to conclusions.
Ali, and then member at large.
You sort of in reference to something Daniel said earlier. The only reason that I would be in favor of the amendment is just because, like Daniel mentioned, a lot of the people who are voting in here today have already had that vote at the faculty level. And correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm actually not a faculty rep, but I believe that many people have just been voting leave or stay, which just might make it like very complicated to now start talking about associate membership.
That's true.
I could be wrong on that, but that's what it seems like to me.
So you're speaking for the amendment?
Yes.
Okay, and then the member at large next.
I'm Nizam, by the way, just for.
I'm going to start getting lost soon. Go ahead.
So I'm going to vote in favor of the amendment because I think that having two options for a motion is ridiculous. I mean, how are we going to proceed with that? So we need to have one way of approaching this, inclusive way from this motion, I think. So that's why I'm in favor.
Thank you. Engineering design.
I was just going to vote in favor or speak in favor of the motion because I brought it forward to my constituents as a leave or stay. So that's kind of what my information is based on. So having that be the actual motion would probably be beneficial.
Thank you. Board of Governors was it next?
Yeah. As the mover of the motion, the spirit of it is to eliminate the option of associate membership and make it about terminating before leaving. The question is, do we want to be in an organization that opposes reducing tuition fees, or and if we're going to do that, you might as well have a full vote. That's why I said strike the associate membership bit.
Okay, next up I have architecture and then Sexton.
I'd like to call the question after you finish the speakers list.
Yeah, sure. That's it. Sexton?
Yeah, it's just a clarification, not a question. Yeah. So before JD's amendment, does that motion mean we are terminating SNS membership? Like there is no option of associate membership, right? Okay.
That'd be correct. If we amended that, then it would eliminate that.
No, before the amendment.
What's that?
Before the amendment, we could do that.
Okay. So before, so let's assume JD's motion is not on the floor. Let's assume, what does this motion say right now?
Right now, it kind of calls for us to decide what it says first, which is what we're doing right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And afterwards, just stay or that's it.
Next up, Aaron, was it?
In favor of this amendment.
Sure. So, there's a request by our architecture to call the question on this. I'm going to respect that. So all those in favor of just calling the question now on the amendment. Okay, so we'll vote now on the amendment, which is to just terminate his membership, and we're going to be eliminating the second part of it, change his membership status to the local association. Everyone's clear on what we're voting on now? It's just the amendment to that. Okay, all those in favor of this motion to amend? Okay, all those opposed? Any abstentions? Got that noted? Okay. So the motion passes. So the motion as it now reads is just terminate its membership. And I guess we can move on with that. It was originally on the floor, if I'm not mistaken, the original motion. Yeah. Okay, so Rams, if you want to, have you already voted? Yeah, we already did that. So we'll start a discussion on that. Anyone who wants to? Yeah, Jackie.
If it's friendly, can I motion that we limit discussion at least initially to 30 minutes with like 2 minutes speaking times for each person? Just to kind of keep it moving.
Is anyone opposed to that? Okay, so
I second it.
Seconded, sure. And we'll just take it adopted by unanimous consent, unless there's any objections, sure. Anyone on the speakers list? Architecture. Sure.
So I put together a little speech, hopefully I can get it done in 2 minutes. I'm speaking to you on behalf of the Faculty of Architecture and Planning this afternoon regarding tonight's vote on whether or not DSU should disaffiliate from the Students Nova Scotia Association. As a faculty, we are opposed to leaving the Students Nova Scotia organization for several reasons that I will explain further. First of all, the members of this council are only one generation that will feel the impacts of this decision. As a member of council, you are voted in year to year, making this organization a very transitional one. I know Rams has discussed that in this meeting, but we didn't have that information before. The decision and opinions of the council may not be shared by those future generations to come. While there's enthusiasm by this group now, there is no guarantee that the students of the future will feel the same way. This transitional nature of the council will plan for advocacy that will be inconsistent leadership each year. Those individuals will have to be brought up to speed and most likely start off from scratch each year, which Ram said that New Students Nova Scotia actually helped them do. The subsequent campaigns will lack consistent long-term voice, while the yearly turnover. Staying with the external organization that has more consistent and permanent staff will provide consistency and long-term vision to campaign work. Well, we are the leaders of the Dalhousie Student, Well, the leaders of the Dalhousie Student Union today, we are making this decision for the future of the university and its students. While most of you will be graduated in a few years and leave this institution, this decision will impact everyone else to attend Dalhousie in the future. So I must ask ourselves if one or two issues that have spurred this drastic decision in the last month is worth throwing out 10 years of a relationship over. We must also, 2 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Can I make 3 bold points?
Very quickly.
The decision made here today should be representative of your constituents and not personal preference. There should be evidence and documentation of your communication and representation of the opinions of your constituents. Please take this into consideration when making your vote today.
Thank you. Next up, I have Michael.
Okay, actually, I was gonna, excuse me. We talked a lot earlier about, whether or not we're representing our constituents and stuff like that. I think when we got voted in, we became the voice of our constituents. So it's just as like the architect reps said, we're speaking for your people. Everybody here basically is speaking for their people as well. So I'm quite sure if any other group had come forward and said, we don't want this, or we do want this, that would have been a no. Also, different things, statements of people showing up at meetings and how many people show up at meetings and whether or not that's a true allocation of the school. You're not going to get every school member to vote. And I think a lot of the people that have passed things out to their different groups and they have brought things up. When you're talking about, I don't mean to pick on what you just said, but you brought up some good points. But when you talk about whether or not what future groups are gonna do, well, future groups can vote back in or vote for another something else. And we can't control what they do or do not do. And also whether or not, hang on. Wait, one more thing here.
10 seconds. Just kidding.
Anyhow, I think the thing is you're asking, and also came up before, that's what it was, came up before about whether or not the students are informed. Well, the students are just as smart as we are, so we're all students too. And they're aware of what's going on. We've been with Student Nova Scotia how long? They've already written their own tableau. We've seen what they've done or not done. If you ask my constituents, they're gonna say students who, because they've never done anything for us. So therefore, it's kind of asinine to say, we haven't seen what they've done. We haven't seen their side of the story. They've had a long time to show us their side of the story. That's not a personal thing, that's just fact.
Okay, student senator.
Oh, is that me already?
No, not yet. You're down the list. I got you, Ali.
Different student senator.
Yeah, that was you, yes.
So I accidentally missed a couple of the letters that were being passed around, but last night, I basically spent all of my time answering those emails that were coming to us saying that students wanted us to vote in or not in Students Nova Scotia. I thought it was a little odd at first that there was a form letter all saying the same thing. So I thought, you know what, I'm just gonna gauge, see where people are at, and I said, you know, this is kind of where I'm coming from. I didn't come into this issue with an agenda. I had no idea who these people were when I came into council last year, but I was aware that this was an issue. So that's one point, that if this is just on your radar now, that's not our issue. That's perhaps maybe your due diligence. So I just responded and said, well, these are the facts that have been laid out before us. This is the question kind of thing. And two people got back to me and said, wow, we actually didn't know that. So I'm a little bit questionable as to the information that was being spread to those people. So I just wanted to speak to that a little bit. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Next up, I have Sexton.
Yeah, to be very fair, I was, to have my decision on this, I would have liked this information to be coming to me at a very early stage rather than coming at the last minute, or maybe not at the last minute. We had a 30 days notice to the president, but that's what I'm trying to say is if we gathered more information, if everyone had a sense of what's happening, what needs to be done or what should not be done, whether we need to leave SNS or whether we should not leave SNS, that's the question. But if we had clear understanding, that would have been really helpful for us. I have a couple of questions, but I just want to ask first question and then probably with the issue that was raised by the South House. I was really keen in knowing what that, and I remember I was asking you about it after the general meeting. So when you said, when the South House released a statement, I mean, they put forward a letter about this whole thing. So I am really interested in knowing what is it after that the South House communicated with SNS? Like, say the incident happened today, what was South House's relation with SNS starting tomorrow? Like, y'all stopped communication completely, or how was it?
Can I put you on the speakers list? Can you hold on to it?
Sure.
Perfect.
Point of information.
You still have 30 seconds if you want.
Point of information.
Okay.
Can he give her 30 seconds to respond?
Can you?
Go ahead. Can you do that in 25 seconds? Yeah.
Okay, great. So our response was to run really great campaigns. That was our response. Like, we're not interested in going back and forth discussing whether assessments exist. Not something we want to do. We're not going to waste our time. So in response, we did really great campaigns that represented students.
Perfect. Thank you. Jackie, you're Jacqueline. Oh, sorry. Can I call you Jackie?
So it just catches me off guard, I'm not actually used to it. So I wanted to just speak really quickly. The one thing that people kept saying is that we hadn't let Students Nova Scotia know this was happening. I actually have a chain of emails. I brought both of them. I have 15 copies of each in case you're curious. This is the chain of emails this is from Tuesday, February 17th, 2015 at 1:56 p.m. This is the email that I wrote telling them that this was happening. As you know, there's a bit of action around SNS on campus, and I just wanted to ask whether there is anything you'd appreciate me forwarding to council or sharing specifically at this point. I've given routine updates on SNS throughout the year, but I'm asking for your input now if you'd like to make any particular points. As always, be in touch about anything. I've CC'd Ron in this email in the likelihood that you've already been in touch with him about this. Sent.
Point of information. Don't you need to, don't they require 30 days notice of the?
To ask if they want to present to the
Yeah, and
council
that
meeting.
was sent on,
This was sent on February 17th, and you don't require 30 days notice to ask to present at a council meeting.
no, but that was the first time that you communicated anything about.
No. This is the first time this is not the first time. This was just an email that I sent last Tuesday, February 17th, asking, hey, this is happening, you know about it, do you want to come present, do you have anything you want me to say?
Sorry, I don't know if that's.
Okay. Second chain of emails, officers meeting regarding the DSU. Pursuant to the first email I sent, we actually had a meeting on Friday talking about everything that was happening on campus, what they wanted to do, how they wanted to be involved. I have the whole chain of emails here. It concludes with an email from me saying, like, thanks for the phone call, get in touch with us, here's my phone number, have a nice weekend. I'm happy to circulate both of these. And for the second part of my information, I'd like to go on camera if that's possible. So motion to go on camera.
Okay. Generally, don't finish with motions. Does everyone have?
No one's sorry.
It's okay. Is anyone opposed to going on camera? No. Okay, so what we're gonna do then is well, do I have a seconder to go on camera? Yeah. Women's community. And no one's opposed.
Just a point of information.
Is it a point of information or is it a point of order?
It's a point of information.
Okay.
What's the purpose of doing camera?
I was going to clarify. It's because it's to do with governance and things with the board of Students of Nova Scotia. I'm not whether sure it's something that like is entirely open to everyone, and I wouldn't want to like broadcast to the world, but I think it is relevant and helpful for council.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks. So we'll move in camera now.
So we should, people who are not members of council will need to.
Yeah.
Has everybody who's a counselor signed a statement of office? I didn't know we had some
Do
like.
you
switching
understand
around.
what in camera means?
Yeah, so this is a closed session. We're going to be turning that video camera off. Everyone also, what's that?
Because there is quite a few, just like explaining in camera.
Yeah. Yep.
We're live.
Okay, guys, I'm going to read out something that we unanimously agreed in closed session to go over when we went back to open session. That is, at our council meeting on Friday, February 27th, 2015, council was presented with concrete evidence of systemic sexism, discrimination, and unprofessional behavior within students of Nova Scotia. Councillors collectively drafted and unanimously voted to release this statement as we have significant concerns about the evidence presented. The evidence directly conflicts with council's statement against misogyny as well as equity clauses and commitments to anti-discrimination enshrined within the DSU governing documents. So that's what we have decided to take out and share with you guys. On that note, we are back onto the main motion there. There was some talk about a recess, but without yet.
Can I motion to recess for 3 minutes?
3 minutes. Yeah, do I have a seconder for that? Okay, graduate studies. Anyone opposed to that? 3 minutes? We'll just do it by unanimous consent. Make it quick, 3 minutes, and we'll get right on the go.
You want me to? You better tweet this in.
Did we vote on it?
Yeah.
What's going on?
We wrote it down for you.
Jen, you ready to get through it? What?
I'm ready for this. I'm getting my food.
We had 6, 7 meetings. We started at 11 or 8 or 5.
Are you doing?
So our meetings are
Spanish
8.
Society.
Oh, is it 40 hours?
It's the, like, the constitution. So I'm going to motion to extend for,
We probably thought it was going to be. Well, this is, I mean, I've never been here.
They're totally for us.
Thank you.
So really, I don't know, but like, I feel like the microphone. Thanks for that. I was just like, I was talking you at the microphone, I was like, something about the microphone and you were just
You are allowed to.
Yes.
We want to really statement.
I mean, it's fine. It could be a leg, so if you guys like, and we'll test that part where I just look at the small good. There's normally a 1 minute leg.
If you're worried
Well, I
about
mean,
that.
I trust you.
Oh, Greg, I think that I trust Greg too, so that's good. Glad
But I
that.
normally ask you.
There was cheering, I was a little concerned. But then everything is fine.
I can look for someone.
Yeah,
So.
it sounded, yeah, lots of.
We have to make a move. It says unanimous, right?
I know. My dad just called me as it was coming back out of camera, and I was like, he's like, do you have some minutes? And I was like, sure, yeah. And I was just like talking to my dad because we went to Aruba and stuff in the at Christmas, and our room got robbed, and the where we stayed, they like bumped us to like VIP, but then they also just like gave my family some 3 days in all inclusive in Mexico. So my dad's like, I'm just trying to schedule this vacation. How's November, December? And I was like, that sounds great. So I was like, yeah, I gotta go back to this meeting. Oh man, they can hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty that way.
Probably just positive.
I mean, that's my job.
We got another minute and a half here.
Here?
No, I'll be.
Oh, I can finish it.
Like if I accept, actually, I can work.
Yeah. Well, we didn't expect against the wrong.
Prefer if you have to shake up.
Can't say.
Realistically, I think everyone's the same.
I thought this was better than nothing.
No one's, I feel like,
Yes.
I feel like no one.
But like, what?
Is going this way.
There was discussion about it, but I can't say whether that's in favor or.
Yeah.
Spanish.
Okay.
My phone, whenever.
Yeah. Do we have quorum?
How much majority? My phone always like, wherever I am, it tells me how long it takes for me to get home by bike, and I don't know why. Like, whenever I log into mine, it's like, you are this long by bike. Like, like this but whenever I, when I was in Charlotte, North Carolina, it was like ETA, it took 5 days. 5 days? Oh my God. They were 5 days. 24 hours.
It sounds like it, yeah.
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for quorum kind of thing, yeah.
I don't have that.
Can everyone who votes raise their placard?
All members of council, please raise their placard, or hands, whatever hands raised. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 17, no.
What do we need?
21.
There's Red.
20.
Oh, how many do we need to have like meetings?
Ron counts for 3.
Wow.
Get back in here. Are they, can you see that? Yell at that.
They're like words that are real words.
I have no idea what
I mean,
Where's my flag?
I mean, orders
Sorry, that's 21.
Okay.
Motion to extend the meeting by 1 hour?
Okay, 1 seconder to extend the meeting for Sexton. Any opposed to extending the allotted meeting time for 1 hour?
It can be shorter than that.
20 minutes.
What?
It can be longer. It can be shorter, we can put down until shorter. There's a motion on the table, let's. What's that?
Whatever, make it an hour, it's fine.
Okay, all those in favor? All those in favor?
Like, well,
Okay, motion passes.
that way.
Second member. Okay, guys, order. Let's get on. We are back on the main meeting. Before we went into closed session, we had 12 minutes left on the half-hour debate. It was 2 minutes. I have a meeting list for that. Yeah, here we go. Ali, you were first up.
Cool. Gonna keep it really brief. I think it's pretty obvious to everyone in this room right now what the right decision is. But so that it doesn't become a one thing issue, and also because I'm the Senate rep, just gonna say a couple things. I'm supposed to make decisions for the entire constituency of all Dalhousie students on an academic basis. Even before our in-camera session, I thought we should leave SNS because they did not support Jacqueline as our VPAE in many things that she was doing, and part of her job is doing academic things. So in a way, they were sort of inherently worsening that. Beyond that, student debt isn't good for anybody. And when I was talking to thousands and thousands of students about all out step forward, and SNS didn't agree, that made it really difficult for me to think that they were good for our academic health as well.
Thank you.
That's it. Thanks.
Next up, I have Bob.
Yeah. Over the last several months, working with Dell Students Against Fee Hikes and talking to literally thousands of students about issues of student debt, university funding, student assistance and grants, I'm confident in saying that reducing tuition fees is a position that is supported by a strong majority of students. Obviously, not all 17,000 students have a consensus on anything, but I'm comfortable saying that a strong majority support reducing tuition fees. We've seen this in the thousands of students across Halifax and at Dell that have signed petitions calling for reduced tuition fees. We've seen this in the fact that hundreds of students took to the streets, often for the first time in their lives going to a rally, to call the government to reduce tuition fees. This is something that students expect their leadership to be talking about. And so when groups like Students Nova Scotia see hundreds of Dell students taking action in things like the Day of Action, and for them to come a week later and directly undermine that position, that is unethical to continue supporting this organization with $95,000 a year. Like, why would we spend $95,000 to undermine the work that Dalhousie students want us to be working on and are working on themselves? We deserve better. We can do better. Unpaid volunteers are already getting better results than what they offer. This is not a difficult choice. This is an obvious choice. Let's get out of them.
Thank you. Next up, I have Aaron, and then Michael.
Can I go to the bottom?
Yeah, sure, Michael.
No.
There's only 2 left.
Okay. But
Response?
Or take me out.
Okay.
I forgot that.
Well, Michael?
I think what I was just gonna say is when we were talking about speaking for people and stuff like that, when I sent out an email around to my constituents, which is, I guess Indigenous Blacks, Nova Scotia, or anybody who wants to answer my emails, the only thing I got back was Student Nova Scotia who, because it, like I said earlier, it does not represent us at all. We do not see any of our voice being said through that group. So that was where my vote is coming from.
Thank you. We have now exhausted the speakers list.
was I not on there?
Oh, no, you
I
are.
thought it was.
Go ahead, beautiful.
In speaking with my dean about it, I was asking her what her, as a professional that's been in many governing bodies and stuff like that, what her thoughts on becoming a individual voice rather than a collective voice was. And she was very much opposed to the idea that Dow would be separating itself from a group of students for reasons that were almost like obvious. Maybe we should just be like, I really felt that we should have worked this year to work on those issues. And I'm not saying that you didn't. And I'm frustrated because I was also on last year's council that there was a document prepared and things like this about how this could be researched for the entire year and a comparative ideas and where things would go from. And I mean, I'm in a spot where I have to make a decision, but now in knowing for 2 weeks that I was a decision I had to get the response of my constituents, and from the professional side of things, professional societies, I believe, agree that they should pay someone to do professional work. You wouldn't rent a tattoo gun and do a tattoo yourself.
Dylan. You take me off. Sure. Engineering.
We kind of, as engineers, we also have in our professional code of conduct that you don't practice outside of your discipline. So that's kind of where we were going, that we should have someone be doing external advocacy for us so that those projects can continue from year to year. That being said, in the light of the statement that was made, that could very well change the opinions of our students, and I think that that should be taken into consideration when you're voting on your constituencies. But I also think that working alongside an outside organization, even if Dalhousie is doing its own advocacy, we can still work with CFES and engineers or Students Nova Scotia and that kind of thing.
Thank you. Hey guys, we've exhausted the speakers list. So,
Call the question.
Yep, sure. The question is, I'll read it out. Whereas the Students Nova Scotia Constitution, is it point of order?
Can you put it on the?
Oh, of course, yeah. Sorry, I'm not used to this.
I have a question. Can this be a roll call vote?
What? Yeah.
Vote on it.
Yeah, sure. Roll call.
Yeah, no, you don't have to vote on it. It's the chair can, at their discretion, has the power to decide what kind of vote happens, and then a councilor can call for a roll call vote once that vote is complete. But my suggestion would be that if we know that Daniel is gonna call for a roll call vote after the end of the first vote, that it would make sense to just do a roll call.
Okay. Roll call, Shelby.
Point of information?
Yes.
Can you describe what a roll call vote is?
Yes, roll call vote is either there's we basically record each councillor's vote on something. There's kind of 2 procedural ways of doing it, but it ends up that same result. Go by yeas and then nays, or just each councillor. But yeah. So that is a roll call vote.
I think you should just go by the list of who was.
Yeah, I did that too, yeah. But before we get there, I'm gonna read the motion out.
Point of information. Sorry,
Go ahead.
I think we also decided, right, before the reps, the councillors vote, we say the reason, if councillors were thinking of abstaining, I think we also decided of talking before abstaining and then putting our vote, I'm sorry. Is that something that was happening or?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay.
Well, if there was discussion and like.
Oh, it was supposed to be in the discussion, okay.
But I mean, if other people wanted to say that, so we can give time to do it.
Yeah.
That's right.
Point of information.
Okay.
If it's doing a roll call vote, when your name is called, if for some reason your vote's changed or like you have information, you can say like, I'm voting this way because this. It doesn't, there's no pressure.
And
Just have it noted in the minutes and I don't, we're gonna be going by each person anyways, and if you want something specific noted in your minutes about your vote at that point, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Sorry, yeah, thanks, Chloe. Okay, in the meantime though, I'm gonna read this motion out. Whereas the Students of Nova Scotia Constitution requires that a member student union give notice of its intention to terminate its membership or change from a full member to an associate member on March 1st, and whereas the Dalhousie Student Union has been reviewing its advocacy approach, therefore be it resolved that the Dalhousie Student Union terminate its membership in Students Nova Scotia. That is the amendment that we're voting on as amended once. Okay, so we'll do a roll call vote then. I'll just.
Point of information.
Yes.
We're voting on the motion as a whole or an amendment?
No, we are voting on the motion as a whole,
Okay.
as amended, but yes, it is the motion as a whole.
So to clarify,
Yes.
voting in favor would be in favor of terminating membership.
That's correct. Okay, Rams.
All right, I vote in favor of the motion, which would mean terminating our membership in Students of Nova Scotia.
Yes. Jacqueline.
Vote yes.
Mahabir? Sorry. Mabuber. I apologize.
I vote in favor.
Okay, thank you. Danny?
I vote in favor.
Jen?
In favor.
Izan?
In favor.
Aaron?
In favor.
Sorry, am I going too fast? Okay. Basima?
In favor.
Okay. Sam?
As proxy, I vote in favor.
Ali?
In favor.
Taylor? Okay.
Absent.
Dylan?
I vote in favor.
Andrew?
I vote in favor.
John?
In favor.
Rebecca? Not here. Alexander?
In favor.
Michael?
In favor.
Ben?
In favor.
Sarah? Amber? Claude?
In favor.
Scott?
In favor.
Tiana?
I vote in favor.
Jamel?
I'd like to clarify, I had spoke to a lot of section folks about these things, and I vote in favor.
You vote in favor, okay. Specific, do you want something specifically noted?
Well, I want to say something, but that would probably take time. Section
Okay.
folks, I just want to say, section
I mean,
folks, I'll be open to meet you.
You can convey that to the constituency, but otherwise, to your constituents, otherwise we'll just leave it as vote in favor. Katie Lynn. Sorry, yeah, Rebecca, sorry. Christine?
As a proxy, I'm abstaining.
Abstaining, okay. Amelia?
Science?
Oh, I'm abstaining, and can I have it noted that I am, even though my constituents voted no, the information I received, I believe, would change a lot of their minds, so.
Okay, thank you. Brogan? Okay, apologies in advance for mispronouncing people's names. Bear with me. Branwyn?
I'm abstaining as well due to information that's come to light. My constituencies originally voted no, and I think that this would change their mind.
Thank you. Sydney?
Not here.
Not here, sorry. Daniel?
I'm opposing.
Opposing? Chris? Sorry. I just need to look a few columns over to see the end there. Mackenzie? Okay. Hema? Sorry, Jasmine?
In favor.
In favor?
Lee?
In favor.
Thomas or Charlotte, the dentistry rep? Okay. Emily is not here, correct? Nazneen?
In favor, but I want to add some lines that in future, anything kind of like this kind of like a strategic decision we are taking, it should be informed by all the constituents of like, so that we can like convince our people beforehand, rather than like coming here and in the room, I'm taking the decisions, then I'm convincing, rather than my constituents convinced, then I'm taking the.
Okay. Vishwa?
Yes.
Yes? Chloe? Oh, recording secretary, yep. Okay, that's everyone. So the motion passes, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it was.
The count is everyone.
So I think if someone wanted to move to adjourn, I don't think that there are announcements, so if anyone has announcements, maybe, but.
Sure, just quickly, Chloe, do you have a question out there?
Oh, are you?
Just bear with us. Yeah.
Are you asking for a
Yeah. Yeah. You have it? Okay. Just bear with us.
So, the count, was, 25 in favor, 3 abstentions, and 1 opposed.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, okay, well, first of all, so we can go right through the business of the executive. Notices of motion, Andrew did mention I needed. Any notices of motion? Okay, announcements?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, huge change of tone here, everybody, but a week from today, something amazing is going to be happening in this building, because we are taking it over to have 7 rooms of music in what will be a massive music festival, namely Subfest. There will be music in the hallway by the boardroom. There will be music in the lobby. There will be music in the Greywood, in the in the Ennisburg office, and in other rooms all over the place. 7 different genres of music. And it's all about getting students into the Sub, introducing them to the union, and trying to get them up into the spaces that they don't see before and getting them using this building. It's only $5 and it's all ages everywhere except the Greywood. So I would love to have it promoted and get lots of people in this building. We already have like 250 people going on a Facebook event, so let's try to get it up to 500 for the night of. I think it'll be really awesome.
One question and an announcement.
Yeah.
The question is, what about the tea room?
Alex?
What?
Got a question?
What about the tea room?
It is called Subfest, so it's in one building, but if it goes off really well, we'll hold it every year, and at 6 months off of it, we'll start holding one down in the Sexton building as well.
Okay, announcement, keeping the spirit. What? Okay, announcement.
Could you give us a minute,
Halifax,
please?
the best trivia in Halifax is happening tonight in the tea room
In half an hour.
in half an hour.
Okay.
Be there, guys, be there.
Everyone remember, elections, nominations open on Monday. They're open all week next week. And you should be promoting to your constituents that elections are here, almost.
Member Large, one last announcement. So I've said this last meeting, I'll say it again. Israeli Apartheid Week is starting next week, Tuesday. We're gonna have 5 events spread over 2 weeks. We're gonna have discussions about colonialism, about pink washing, about women in Palestine and so on, and how occupation influences them. We'll also make connections to how our government is complicit, how our university is complicit. So be there. It's important for university.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn. Danny?
It was me first. It was me.
President, Scott. Any opposed?
Take it by unanimous consent. Have a good weekend, everyone.
Yeah, no problem.
Feel free to join me in our. You're like, no. You're
I'm gonna stop the broadcast unless anyone has any objections.
DSU out.
Stop broadcasting.